Hello and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and today I have a good friend, a repeat guest here on Market Shares, and a fellow regional manager. I got Ryan Hills in the house today. He's not in the house because we're virtual today, even though we live in the same state, but our schedules would not allow us to coordinate into the same room. So he's in his studio, I'm in my studio, but we both got great equipment, so it'll feel like we're all together. But Ryan Hills is the regional director at Movement Mortgage, and just someone who's really been someone I looked up to when it came to my journey into social media. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and someone who's really just become a close friend of mine over the years. And today we purposely did not put together a lot of content that we want to go over. We both are in, leadership roles in the mortgage business. There's a lot going on, and we thought we would just share some of our thoughts and just kind of unpack some of what the world's dealing with today. And we'll see where the conversation goes. And I hope that you really enjoy it. Ryan Hills, welcome back to Market Shares.
Dude, I was just thinking about kind of the framing up of the conversation. And I love that we have a wild card show. We can go anywhere. And I was like, this is kind of like one of our late night phone calls when we just talk, call each other. There's no agenda, but they're always amazing. And you're bouncing ideas off, each other, and you come away, smarter, and you have a refined idea. And sometimes we bitch and moan about the industry. Sometimes we talk about what's working. So I guess these guys get to see a little bit of what a phone call would be like between you and I.
Yeah, perfect. Well, and what's funny is we're like direct competitors, and that's, I think, a takeaway that I hope people get from, it's not just Ryan. I have lots of friends and in the mortgage industry, but we're in the similar markets. We're, technically competitors, but we're really good friends, and we respect each other and we share ideas. And I've talked about this so many times on Market Shares, like the relationships that you can develop in the mortgage space. And I think it's a good reminder to people, like, you should have people like that in your world, people that are at a similar level to you, doing the same types of things and getting perspective. Now, we both recognize that, we're not sharing insider secrets about our companies or things that we're doing or whatever. And you don't have to. You can have relationships where you don't, cross those boundaries, but you can also feel free to have open dialogue, share ideas. And it's really been helpful. I mean, it's been, I don't know about you, Ryan, but for me, it's been really helpful over the years to know that I can reach out to Ryan and say, how are you dealing with this? Or are you guys experiencing this same thing? And it's so valuable to have those kind of relationships.
For sure. I mean, our owners do it, right? So,
Right.
we should absolutely do it. Loan officers should do it with other loan officers. I can humbly say I'm better because of my relationship with Tony. He's taught me a lot. He's, pressed me to get better. He's challenged me in different areas. And I'm so thankful that we have our relationship, even though we're direct competitors. So 100% subscribe to that. I think it's also one of the things that's helped me with my career trajectory. It's that old saying, you are the five people, the five company that you keep. The sum of those people. And so I'm honored to say, yeah, well, Tony's one of them, and some of our other friends that are a part of that. So yeah, if you don't take anything away, just like pursue those relationships, like all out. Like it could be the most helpful thing you could do today. If you don't have them right now, go pursue them.
Yeah, 100%. Well, there is one topic that I mentioned to you that I would like to just start with. And it's going to affect all of us depending on which direction it goes. And I wish I had a little more, I guess, insight into what the ramifications of this could be. But there is accelerating talk about Fannie and Freddie becoming private again. And I have mixed emotions about this. And I'm surprised that I do, to be honest with you, because
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that.
I know. Well, you know me well enough to know I'm a real free market guy. So this idea of a government conservatorship just makes me go like, I didn't like it when it happened. I've always said, Fannie and Freddie should be on their own. They should, be able to do what they want to do. But here's, I think, the caveat for me, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is we have not seen the opening up of any sort of other private type of funding into the mortgage space. So when you think about pre-2006, there was all this Alt-A, and sure, there's some non-QM, we can talk about that, but there was so many other sources of revenue that were invested into the mortgage industry. And I thought for sure that as that started coming back, you would see more and more diversity of products and programs and things of that nature. And it wouldn't matter as much if Fannie and Freddie were under this conservatorship, really taking their direction from FHFA, et cetera. But I don't know. It feels to me now like if they went private and depending on what they did with their products and programs, it could leave a lot of people without funding sources for mortgages. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, we've created content forever. So if you do a lot of content, especially if you're talking about the market, you're going to call some things right. And if you do it long enough, you're going to call a lot of things wrong. So I've definitely had my May 10th moments, right? This one we called right. So I'm kind of proud that we talk to people about, hey, if this thing happens, and we talked about it at $1.50, I think, then the stock could do this. And now it's gone from $1.50 to, I think it's close to $10 and $11 today. And not that I can give out stock advice, nor should you take it from me. But if it gets privatized, that stock was running at $50 to $80 way back in the day. So could be a home run, something to play with. Only put money into it that you can lose, though. So excited that we called that one run. I am in the camp that I want it to go back to be private. This is where I put my tin hat on a little bit. I just don't trust that the money that gets printed, and let's be honest, there's a lot of money that Fannie and Freddie do produce. I don't trust, and now we've seen why I'm about to say this. The government doesn't run that great. We've implemented Doge, and Trump's, doing his work there. But even with that, I don't know that that's enough oversight to make sure that all that money stays there for housing and it's not being siphoned for something else that it shouldn't be related to. So some of that's tin hat a little bit from me, but I just don't trust our ability to make sure that the funds stay here. Because one of the things, you and I were talking about the green room, like Pulte's calling on Trump for lower rates and Trump's calling on Powell for lower rates, and Trump's calling on Powell for lower rates. Curious of your thoughts too. Like, well, what if we just went in and addressed some of those LLPAs down, regardless of what free market's doing on the bond side? You could address affordability overnight like that.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about LLPAs in a second, but let's just stay on what you said about the government siphoning money out of Fannie and Freddie. Like, as a taxpayer, do I hate that idea that Fannie and Freddie generate all these profits and it's going back into the government because the government's the one that bailed out Fannie and Freddie to begin with? So to me, it's like we invested in a failing company that frankly we needed to because we couldn't lose Fannie and Freddie, but now we're getting the returns for that investment, in this failing business. It's like Shark Tank or something, right? It's like, I should get those, the rewards from that. And if that's helping to fuel the government, I guess my question, A, is that a bad thing? And then B, do we really think that if they become privatized, that they're going to lower their fees and lower the amount of profits that they're making so that they can make mortgages more affordable? Like, I don't know if I see that happening.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I love the discussion. It's almost like a debate too, because I guess I see your point from a taxpayer perspective, but I don't trust that it's helping the overall imbalance that we're facing right now. I kind of think it's going to cover other sins that the government's, you know what I mean? So if everything else was ran perfectly and our tax dollars get lowered because of this money that's coming in, love it. I love the idea. I just don't trust that that's happening. I think it's probably covering other issues. And we still, even with Doge, which I'm a fan of, and I hate, you almost can't even say the word Doge because it gets political. I'm saying it. I'm a fan of accountability with our tax dollars being used. That's all I'm saying. But I don't know if you saw like the story, even last week with Trump, with Doge, there was a $100,000 bill at Fannie Mae for a lunch. What are we doing? What are we doing, guys? Do we need to spend $100,000 at lunch? Like, we're in this environment already. And even with the additional oversight, we're still misusing those funds. So to me, whether it's private or it stays in the government, I just want more oversight. I want to be able, just like Tony, you and I have to run our companies the most efficient way possible. And there's a ton of accountability around it if you don't. I want that to be the same for our government. And if Fannie's going to be, privatized or not, I want the same thing, whether they're private or not. I just want them to be efficient. We should be able to make money. I'm a capitalist too, but we could address affordability, in my opinion, with LLPAs, with G fees. I think if they're private, you do have stockholders to respond to, but they want to make money, but they also want to have a fair housing and affordable housing. So I guess that's a long way to say, I think what I want now, whether that's private or not, I guess that's up to the government.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the LLPAs for a second. I mean, I would absolutely 100% agree that FHFA could make changes today to some of the LLPAs that we deal with, that our customers deal with, and completely change what it looks like for homeowners, especially in this super high rate environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the G fees have done nothing but gone up, and the LLPAs, in my opinion, are ridiculous is an easy word. I mean, they're punitive. They're punitive, in my opinion, and I don't understand why. But no, I 100% agree that some changes could be made there, and it could make a significant impact. You know, and as we're talking about this, you know what could because right now Fannie and Freddie are both regulated by FHFA. It's one regulator. Now they do run things a little different, right? Like you're seeing right now, Freddie Mac ARMs are like super aggressive. I don't know what that's about. You see a little bit different pricing. You see a little bit different guidelines. But all in all, their oversight is from the same regulator, the same FHFA. I wonder if the competition between Fannie and Freddie would heat back up, right? If they were private,
I could see that.
Right? And the free market kind of comes into play, and now they can be a little bit more free to try to attract more business. That could be like a little bit of a price war, perhaps, right? You could see pricing. You could see that through LLPAs and maybe even through products and programs. So that's an aspect I hadn't thought about that now, you know, that we're talking about it. I would love to see some competition between Fannie and Freddie.
Competition's always good for the end consumer. And they're going through, and they're probably last and late to the game, but they're going through their own version of Doge right now. So the government's going to continue to do both sides. So I can play the middle here, left and right, what they've always done, which is bloat inside of agencies, too many layers, way too many efficiencies. And he's already called them out. We have too many layers. We have to thin this thing out. It's very similar to the mortgage industry right now. We have to reduce layers and thin this thing out. So I do love that. But back to like my side of this debate, like, what do you think is going to happen if they're left to their own demise? They're just going to continue to do what every agency's done in America since the 1920s, which is just get gigantic, and it takes more of our taxpayer dollars to fund it. I don't love that. So yes, reduce layers, do the same thing you and I are asked to do every day, run an efficient model with fewer people involved. I would love that for FHFA and for Fannie and Freddie. And I think that they're actually looking at it right now. I think that's good for the industry.
Well, I think the other thing, you know, not to choose your side of this debate at this point in the conversation, but one thing that does come to mind is that there would be inconsistency forever based on what political party is in office with how Fannie and Freddie are ran. I don't like that at all.
Back and forth.
Just like we see in so many other parts of the government. Do we really want that in housing? So I think that's one in your column here for privatization. And I'm not saying I'm against it. I just, you know, it's fun to create a debate, you know, characteristic to the conversation. But no, anyway, well, that's interesting. Well, this is something that I'm sure on both of our shows we're going to be following and talking about, because the only reason I brought it up today, this has been talked about for years since they were privatized, but it is at a level in the media right now, especially if you watch or listen to a lot of mortgage and real estate media. You guys, this is like on the cusp. You know, they're basically saying if rates were any lower right now and they felt like the risk wasn't there, that rates could go up as a result of this would be happening today. So I think this is basically imminent, you know, that they want to push for this during, you know, Trump's administration. And, you know, it's something that if you're not reading about it, you should be. Keep your eye on it. We'll keep you updated. But anyway, I'm glad we had a chance
to think about
it
from a publicist standpoint too. I thought about this. It makes a lot of sense to me. So whether you love or hate Trump, I think both sides would agree, like Trump wants wins and he wants to be the owner of those wins, right? So he comes out and says, hey, everybody, good news. I impacted rates. Powell wouldn't do it. So I did it with lower LLPAs. You're welcome. Wouldn't that, like, that's a publicist's dream to go address home affordability overnight. And he's the one guy that can own that win. Like, that's a no-brainer to me.
Well, which is why I'm surprised that hasn't been done already, frankly. I mean, that could have been done, as far as I can tell, immediately.
Maybe he's got that ace up his sleeve for later, but that just makes so much sense, even if it's just a strategic play for him to get a giant W.
Yeah. Let's talk about the CFPB really quick, and then I got a few other things that I jotted down I want to talk about. I've done a few episodes on the CFPB. What are your thoughts on just the just the shuttering basically of the CFPB? Do you have any quick thoughts on that?
These are fun because you can both of us could probably argue both sides, just like we did with Fannie. We did call this one too. Like the very beginning, I don't know if you watched that show, the 10 housing wildcards. We called this, and everybody's like, "No, that's not going to happen." And they're not completely gone, but defunded, and a lot of people let go. So I've always said, I'm a big fan. Ken Perry's our good friend as well. I'm a big fan of compliance and doing things the right way. I'm a capitalist, but do it the right way. Don't cut corners. I'm a super fan of compliance. I'm in his CE every year for the last 10 years, but I'm not a compliance officer, but I'm a fan of it. That being said, there was a lot of redundancies in that role. There's quite a few other agencies that are tasked to do that, including our own states. And they, prior to the CFPB, did a pretty good job at that. So it's hard to say that, I don't want regulation or oversight, because that doesn't sound right. But I want it, again, it's back to my other statement. I want it with the least amount of an effort and people as possible. And there was a lot, and there's still a lot of redundant roles. So I guess the shortest is every industry needs oversight and regulation. I think we have enough of it right now. Now, the other side of this, not to talk out of both sides of my mouth, you've probably seen it too. We're starting to see lenders get really loose on some of these things. And I don't love that. And love you brokers, but you guys have your own version of this, or where you're very loose on it. And so maybe you could say, well, Ryan, there's not enough oversight because there's people breaking the rules every day. So not a fan of people breaking the rules or cutting corners, but if we could somehow just get 1 or 2 agencies, not 10, to perform that task, that'd be great.
My thought's the exact same, is that just the perception of the CFPB not being the scary, thing that it was, is going to lead people to do bad things. And then the first thing that comes to mind is, well, is that a reason then to overregulate everybody else? Look, the reality is I would like to think that the state regulators are going to have to step up in this fight. For sure. And I think they're the ones more capable of identifying, especially the smaller companies, maybe brokers, but I'm just saying smaller entities that weren't as a big of a target for the CFPB. The local regulators are more equipped to find those violations anyway, because they'll be looking at everybody. So I think as long as we see the state regulators step up, as many states already do a great job, some are probably over the top, some probably don't do enough. But if we see that appropriate shift, then I am in the camp that the CFPB maybe duplicating efforts, right, that are already happening. But I feel like some state regulators have felt like they can pull back because the CFPB was in place, and that's allowed a lot of the smaller players maybe to fall through the cracks. So as long as we're properly funding and supporting our local like in Washington, the DFI, the Department of Financial Institutions, then I think that things will be good, and maybe the CFPB isn't as necessary, at least not in the mortgage space. I think there's other types of lending that they oversee that are much worse than what's going on right now in the mortgage space.
And just Google, I did this right away because I wanted to know, I'm a nerd. Like, go back and Google all the big settlements. You're going to see, CFPB is in some of them, but DOJ is in a lot of them. Again, redundancy, like DOJ, Washington DFI, the big cases, the millions of dollars in fines, wasn't necessarily just because the CFPB. It was because other agencies ran their own task force, found fault, and won the settlement. So that kind of like is the smoking gun. It wasn't just them. There's still other agencies finding fault and regulating the industry and holding people accountable.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, let's shift gears, because it would be just inappropriate of me to have Ryan Hills on an episode and not talk a little bit about your podcast and not just your podcast for what it is today, but the fact that you started your social media and podcast journey way before anybody else in the mortgage space. I mean, there might have been a few out there. I know Frank and Brian were doing a show that was probably around the same time or close to it. But what you did was, I think, remarkable. What you and your team have done is remarkable, and it's still super relevant today. And look, I've been on this journey now for, I don't even know, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. I don't know if it's that long. And it's a grind, you know. It is a lot of work to get something going. And what I've found is that, you know, the only commitment I made when I started the Market Shares podcast was I'm going to be consistent. And I think you're the epitome of consistency. Matter of fact, before I did an episode every Friday, I would watch your episode every Monday. I'm like, how does this guy possibly put out a new episode every single Monday? So maybe talk about that just for a second. Like, to those people out there who see, and I've had people come up to me and be like, man, like what you're doing on Market Shares is cool. You know, I'm going to start a podcast, or I should start a podcast, or I need to do something more with social media. Like, what are your thoughts for people around this, being like what I would consider one of the OGs in the space?
Yeah, that just makes me an old guy now, but I am proud of the consistency.
Hey, what's funny about this, and not to rip on you, but I looked at a video of yours from 10 years ago, and you look the same. I mean, you must have went gray when you were like in your 20s.
I tell everybody I went gray at 28 years old. I was playing pickleball this weekend, and a guy that was 71, he was really, really good. He goes, what are you, 60? And I was so taken back. I'm like, 60 what? He goes, 60 years old. I'm like, you mother, like, no, dude, I'm 47. What's wrong with you? I went gray at 28. So yeah, actually, Tony, yes, I look the exact same. I've been this age for the last 18 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to say, dude, this is the first year, full transparency, where I got up this year and I was like, I don't know if I can do this, dude. Like 18 years in, like, can I keep doing this? And as you know, as you grow in the business and your job gets bigger, there's just a lot that's required from you. So for a second or a week or two, I thought about just going out. I think I had a good run. I'm good. Obviously, you know, I dusted out the cobwebs and processed that thought and recommitted. And I'm so glad that I did. Had some really fun topics this year that have been right on. And so consistency is tough. And I think the biggest takeaway is what you said. Any strategy, any LO, whatever strategy, if you do what Tony just said and just commit, regardless of the wins and the losses, like you're going to do well. Just commit, whatever it is. If it's every Friday, if it's every Monday, commit. And I promise you'll get better. Just so many people try a thing and they quit after 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I love that you led with that, because to me, that's the biggest takeaway. It is difficult. It's getting easier though, man. It's so much easier to create content. For me, I feel like it's super noisy now because yes, I think I was probably second in the room behind Frank and Brian 18, 20 years ago in terms of an OG, but now everybody has a mic, a channel, and they're good. I'm not even saying they're bad. It's just, it was easier to stand out when I, 5-10 years ago. Now you got Tony, who's doing great. You got Basis Point, you got Neil, you got so many really cool people speaking and adding value. It's tough to stand out even for an OG. So the AI tools, guys, I know everybody loves or hates AI, but it's so easy. I use them to kind of help refine my message, but I'm telling you what, if you don't, people always say, and you hear this too, Tony, I don't know what to say or how to say it, when to say it. Well, we can help you with all that. We just talked about when. You're going to commit to a day. But you can take 4 articles from 4 different sources, copy and paste them into ChatGPT or Gronk, whatever AI, and you can have them spit out a script that'll be version 1.0. It'd probably be 80% you, and you can refine it within 5 minutes. For me, and you know my story, like I would be creating a message for the entire week based off what was going on in the industry, trying to formulate it in my own voice. Now you can done what I've done for 18 years in 18 minutes with ChatGPT, and it'll sound great. It'll be impactful. It'll ask, insightful questions. The more you use it, it'll sound like you. So easy to create content now. And then what I was talking to you about in the green room is Google just launched Google Ultra, which is their version of AI. So not only will it do all of that, but it'll actually do it with Tony's likeness. And it won't look like the old school AI videos where everything was kind of a blur. It'll look just like what you're watching today. And it won't be you in front of camera. It'll be your voice. So you won't even have to write the script, and you won't even have to jump in front of camera. You'll just have to come up with the prompt or the content that you want to talk about. And you hit enter and it's done. It's wild. It's only a week old. So actually Ricky and RC are working on really understanding this at a high level. I'm hoping that'll be our next show this next Monday to try to introduce it to the industry. Like, here's how you can leverage it. So if you want to look and kind of get ahead of the curve, just Google that, go watch some of the videos. You're going to be like, holy smokes, this is insane. Game changer.
So you're saying it takes your likeness and it it basically makes a video for you with the words that you give it and the image that you give it, and then it produces basically a video of you talking, but it's not you.
Yep. And you can do that in perpetuity for whatever scenario. Now, there's a couple of vendors last year that came out. Do you remember the name of them? I'm drawing a blank. There's one big one. And, you read a few words and you made it, it asked you to look left, look right, look up and down. And it did a pretty good job. But if you knew, you would see that it was really repetitive in its motions of your AI videos. This is completely next level. And whatever vendor that is, I apologize, they're going to go away quickly with Google Ultra. And it's expensive. So it's $250 a month. It's not cheap, but it's also going to, think about it like in all of the marketing departments, they're tasked, like how many originators does NAF have? 3,000, right? Like they have to go help create content for 3,000 people, and it's got to be compelling. It's got to be high quality, 4K and on point. They're going to be able to do that job way more effectively now with Google Ultra.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Marketing departments will be revolutionized, and LOs and realtors. I mean, your job just became really easy.
Right. Well, and you could probably even make the person look a little better, right?
For sure.
In the image. Well, let's talk about that. Just since this is a wild card episode, I mean, doesn't this bring up? I've been thinking about this recently because I've seen more and more of this AI video out there, and right now, I don't think there's any legal disclaimers necessary or anything like that says like, hey, this is not the person, this is a likeness of the person. And I feel like as much as this is super helpful and can speed things up, I don't know, part of me feels like it's very disingenuous. It just allows someone who is not good at being on camera, and look, none of us are great at it. I mean, I think that, like you said, practice and doing it every single week, you might get better, but we all have bad days. We all have bad episodes. This would you wouldn't have a bad episode. You would just be perfect every time, You'd
be the most well-spoken Rene Rodriguez speaker that looked like Brad Pitt ever.
Exactly. So, I mean, how do we feel about that? I mean, I
don't know. Just like today, both sides of the I get what you're saying. There's landmines everywhere. Legal's completely way behind of catching up to all the problems that you're talking about. They barely can spell AI yet, let alone build parameters around it. So I 100% agree with you. I've said for a while, reality is going to be so hard to differentiate that even like the government and Trump will have to have a watermark or something that proves to you that this is real life. And if it doesn't have this watermark, then it's AI. We're already there. Like the new AI stuff it's indistinguishable. You can't tell if it's real or not. The last year's AI stuff was honestly garbage compared to what they have now. And you're like, oh, this is absolutely AI. But it brings up a whole host of problems, Tony. I mean, I don't even know how to solve them because we don't even know how many problems exist with it.
Yeah, well, I like that idea of a watermark or something that indicates that it's original, and that has to be on the cusp of. I mean, that has to be talked about. I know Washington State. I get a lot of updates from the Washington Mortgage Bankers Association, and there's been quite a few talks about AI and regulation around AI, and you even heard like Elon Musk for like 6 years has been talking about how important it is that as AI gets developed that we start building regulation around it. And look, I'm not a big regulation guy, but this stuff is scary, and the ability, the deep fakes and the things that they can create just from like just any image of you. I mean, look at those. I mean, you're on social media. Look at all the talking baby thing. Like,
yes.
I'm looking at these videos going, this is incredible. Like, how do they do this? And granted, they're babies, and some of the content that they're talking about is weird because obviously it's adults that look like babies. It's weird.
Yeah.
But the quality of it just looks so good. And it's like, if this is where we're at, I don't know. I feel like there needs to be some pretty swift discussions about what you can do with your whether it's your likeness or you're using someone else's likeness. Like there needs to be something that tells people this isn't real somehow.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, if anybody's going to be, I don't know if offended is the right word or, feel a certain type of way about it, it's going to be a guy that's grinded for 18 years to create relevancy. And all of a sudden somebody can snap their finger and do it better than I can. So all my 18 years of experience and working hard is out the window. Doesn't mean nothing. So yeah, I get how you feel. Like anybody can be the most amazing speaker ever now and have better content just by a snap of a finger. And I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle. Both my kids are graduating. I'm trying to set them down the right path. And I'm like, that job's probably going to be AI, take over that job. It's so scary to me. I just don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle and what's going to be safe in the future in terms of a job, what's not. It's frightening to me, man. I don't know what this world's going to look like shortly.
Yeah. Well, and if it, they said it was going to accelerate quickly, I think it's accelerating quicker than anyone thought. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit just about the state of the mortgage industry. Look, both you and I oversee a lot of loan officers, a lot of people, managers, things of that nature. I'm just curious what comes to mind when you think about what are the biggest challenges that you see loan officers dealing with today, and then any thoughts on how they can overcome those.
I think the biggest challenge, it wasn't necessarily a loan officer challenge, although they're a part of it, is we have to figure out, and we are figuring out every one of us, how to figure out how to close a loan with fewer hands attached to that loan, because margins have been compressed. Who knows if they're coming back? And quite frankly, the LO comp has been talked about a while. Like, if you're going back to your company and asking them to pay for leads and marketing support and LOAs, like there's no more. There's no more margin to pay for any of that stuff. And so you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. So it's going to have to come out of the LO comp. And I'm an LO. I'm advocating for LOs. I'm not saying I want you two guys to make less money. But when you look at it from a math equation, the math doesn't work. There's only so much margin for you to be, especially if you're trying to be competitive, right? And there are most of them. I mean, the industry only made 10 basis points as an industry last year. And some people didn't. There's no more room there to accommodate any more accoutrements. So as we grow, I think the LO is going to have to figure out, if I want a marketing person myself, if I want a junior and a front and a back end, here's what's carved out to pay the LO part of the job. It's going to have to either go to one of you or four of you, and that's your decision. That might be a hot take, Tony. I don't know, but that's just how the math works. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that companies need to focus on their efficiency first, right? And, I think a lot of companies have been doing that over the last couple of years. Like, we need to lower the cost of manufacturing the loan product. And to me, that's kind of separate from the loan officer compensation piece of it, because to your point, even though you said it comes out of loan officer comp, really what you're saying is the loan officer will decide how much the loan officer makes. And,
right.
And it's kind of a self-selecting kind of a thing. It's like, well, how much of the work do you want to, it's just like running your own business,
Yeah.
Do you want to answer the phones? Like, if you're an auto mechanic, do you want to run the front office and then run back and replace someone's brakes?
Change the oil.
Yeah.
Then do marketing and then run the books.
and then do you want to sweep the floor at night and clean everything up and take the garbage out? And, or do you want to have someone work the front desk, and do you want to have someone else sweep the floors, and all you do is the oil changes, in which case it's going to impact your margin, right? And you're probably going to have a model where you can be more efficient and do more transactions, right? It's the same. It's like running a business, And I think that the mortgage companies that have started to figure this out are building an environment where loan officers can run, they can be that intrapreneur, and they can select where they want to be in the market. But if you're going to attract loan officers, then you also need to say, but we've focused on making sure that the part that we're responsible for, right, the manufacturing part of the loan, is the most efficient that it can be. So
that's where competition comes back. Like you talked about it with Fannie and Freddie, competition comes back. You're 100% right. They're kind of plugging their business into our business, and it better be ran well and efficient, because if it's not, then they're going to go find something else that is. And I like the way you said it. It's really LO selected. Look, you can do the whole job, or you can grab a team and parcel it out, which will maybe you outrun it with more volume because of that, but that is going to be your decision to make at the end. And it's not a reduction.
Right. No, it's not no, it's just, there's only so much of the pie to go around. Right. I mean, the other thing that, when you think about the company provided support piece of it, to me, that is still a differentiator, because there are companies that, will have a low margin and provide nothing. And then there's companies that provide a whole lot, but it takes a lot of margin to do that. And then it's like, where do you find that sweet spot where, you have that competitive price, the loan officer can stack, what they want to make on top of that. And it provides, good product, access to product, an efficient operations system, but also some of the things that loan officers need, and want. And so this is where I think the fine line of competition on the company side comes in is, which of these things are staples, which of these things are options, and how does that whole package work? It's all part of the puzzle. And I don't think either of us need to share necessarily like maybe our exact thoughts on it. I mean, we all have our strategies as organizations, but I think from a loan officer's perspective, those are the things that you need to be looking at is, it's not all price, or everyone would just work out of their basement and do loans with no support. So there's this spectrum of expectations, I think, that loan officers should have when they decide which company to work with. And I think everyone's got a slightly different formula. And but you do see them kind of lining up. I think you kind of see them lining up a little bit across the industry.
Well, and it's the good news, and there hasn't been a lot of good news in the industry the last 3 years. I'll be honest, like most people have hated the higher rate environment and bank accounts are lower and relationships are stressed. It hasn't been great the last 3 years. It's been tough, right? And people have said a trigger phrase for me, which is it's all about mindset. And I'm like, God, that seems so airy and fluffy and easy to say. But it really is, as much as I hate that phrase. If you come into this and every day you're just like, I hate this business, it sucks, it's only been adversity for 3 years, then your actions and your behaviors are going to follow what you believe. Conversely, I'm like, this is forcing all of us to get better. Owners, regionals, loan officers, this competitive, ultra thin margin environment is forcing us to get better every single day. And you can hate it, or you can be on the right side of it going, okay, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. Just like you went through 75 hard, and all of those tough decisions made you better, stronger, faster, more efficient. It really is forcing all of us to get better and sharper at our craft. LOs, realtors, you're a part of that as well. And that's the good side. And the good ones and the people that do have their mind right will come out of this better and actually in the business still. And the other ones that hate it and fell out of love with it, which is easy to do, are going to go find a different job, different profession.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Let's talk about, I don't know how much time we've been going at this. We could probably do like a Joe Rogan episode and go for 3 hours, but I don't think we want to do that today. But I do want to talk about an episode. So I was going through I went over to your YouTube channel to look at some of your recent episodes, because I'm like, I wanted some inspiration for what we might talk about today. But one of the videos that came up was from 10 years ago. And that's where I was joking that you literally look the same. But the topic of that conversation was basically the premise was, you said, look, I've figured out the secret to success, and it all boils down to 4 words. And in my head, and maybe I'd seen this before or what, but literally before you said it, I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, work your ass off. And then you're like, work your ass off. And it just goes back to this idea that as much as we talk about AI, we talk about all the different strategies and all the different ideas, all of which I think are super relevant, but layered on top of all of that is this idea that if you want to be super successful in the mortgage and real estate space, and it probably applies to everywhere, but we're talking to mortgage and real estate people, the number one common denominator of successful people is they work their ass off, and that was a brilliant episode. I'm just curious your thoughts on this, and has this market, the frustration of this market, because here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a divergence of loan officers, at least the ones that I work with. There's the ones that feel like they've given up, that have bought into, this is a bad market, this is a difficult thing, this industry is difficult, it's not even me, it's all of us, it sucks, everything's horrible, and that's just the idea. And I see other people right now that were struggling, but man, over the last, really this year, it feels like I see a handful of people going, not me. I am not going to be okay with that. And they're working their asses off, and they're working the weekends, and they're going to open houses, and they're holding events, and they're doing the things, and they're trying to do social media, and they're, doing the stuff. They're working their ass off. And I'm starting to see the success come from that. Now, I've always felt like, I'm just a hard worker. I'm a blue collar, I came up in a blue collar family. I worked my butt off since I was 12, 13 years old. And when I got in the mortgage business, I'm like, you're going to pay me how much for every loan that I do? Like, what do you mean I'm not paid by the hour? Like, I didn't know any different. So I just worked my butt off. And I know you have that same work ethic. But you're starting to see it. So what inspired that episode? How do you feel today about the direct correlation between working your ass off and having success in this business?
Dude, what's wild too, I was just saying the same thing. You're spot on. Like the have and the have nots in our business, it's wild to see. And the gap is getting bigger and bigger. And there's still a lot of business for the haves, and the have nots are just clicked out or don't believe that there's opportunity, and that gap's getting wider. So I'm seeing the exact same thing. And, it's easy to glorify, put 2 really focused hours into your day and you can F off the rest of the week. Guys, I'm telling you, maybe this is just old Uncle Ryan talking in the business. I haven't fucking seen it. I've been around for 20 years. I know billionaires. I know millionaires. I've talked to every top producer in the business. Tony and I sat at Amplify with some of the best people. Every single one of them worked their ass off. I don't know how to tell you any different. You watched it on Instagram. Some guy told you could work for 2 hours. Great. If you can do it, great. Go do it. I haven't seen it. And everybody that's still excelling, including the owners, I know owners that are billionaires, they work their ass off still, guys. So I don't know how to tell you any different than that's the blueprint that I've seen. That's how I've got success. That's how Tony's got success. All the producers that you glorify in this business work their ass off. Trust me, I met them all. I spent a lot of time with them. I've interviewed them. There's no shortcut. I don't know how to tell you that differently. And I know all the Gen Zs, are going to probably kick and scream and cry about that. But that's how you stand out. You have to. And that's why I try to instill in my son and daughter, like in football. Carson, thankfully, you only got 2 guys to beat for the wide receiver position. Wait till it's real life and you have 500 to beat for that job. Go out, work those 2 guys and earn that starting role. Like that's the real world blueprint for success. How do I tell you any different? And I know that's probably coming off like old guy, get off my lawn type.
Well, no, but here's the part that I would add to it, I think. And I just thought about this while you were saying that, because I agree with you. But I agree with that idea that if you are doing something that you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life, right?
True.
And
that's so hard to find though, man. I think we're blessed to find something that we enjoy even in the hard times. You mentioned it. I feel the same way. Humbled at the money that we can make in this business 20 years later. But I know we found a unicorn, Tony. And so it's easier for me not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's so hard to find that, what you're saying.
Well, I guess, and that's my question is are people, I mean, I've always loved this industry and I do work a lot. One thing you mentioned in that video, which I think is important also, is you got to find time for your family. I'm home for dinner pretty much every night with my family, unless I'm traveling and on the road, which just happens to be more these days than maybe it was in the past, but that's just part of the deal. But you got to find time for your family. You got to find time for the things that you enjoy doing. So I'm not suggesting you don't do that, but I'm talking like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I was anti-casual Friday, like forever, right? And so I'm like, that's 20% of your week. What do you mean casual? There's no, so get after it. But I think that as I think about the amount of time and effort and energy that I've put into the mortgage business, I also feel like I love what I do. And I guess that would be my message to the listeners is like, don't think of it as hard work. Yes, your calendar should be full every week. And if it isn't, then guess what? It needs to be filled with prospecting, right? Because you need to go do some sales activity because you have nothing to work on. That's the job. But if you love it, if you love what this industry can do for you and your family and your life and your goals, then it shouldn't feel like work, but you should be working hard. It just should feel rewarding. Does that make sense, Ryan?
Yeah. And I don't want anybody to mishear me. If you've watched any of my content, you know this. I remember a show 10 years ago also called The 4-Burner Theory, where we talked about you can't work your ass off at the expense of being a good father or husband or wife or mother, right? Like, so it's always been be really consistent with the 8 hours that you have. It's more than enough. Let's be honest. Most people work half that. If you worked 8 consistent, super focused hours, that's working your ass off. But 4-Burner Theory, as a reminder, is I love Kobe. and Tiger, but they had their one burner professional, Tiger golf, obviously Kobe basketball. It was turned up to 100. So being a husband and a father and other hobbies and health took a back seat. That didn't work. It worked at a high level for being a great basketball player and being a great golfer. But I've always been a proponent of you've got to have like some seasons, and it's okay, guys. Your burner for work is going to be at 50, and the others are going to be lower. That's just a season. It's okay. Like there's going to be seasons like that, and there's going to be seasons where you're going to go, you know what, I'm going to turn up the family burner more, or the personal fitness burner more. And that's just your life. You're going to have 4 burners. It's 4 burner theory. You're going to always have it regardless if you know or not. And you can't have it at 100 and the rest at 0. It's going to be a constant ebb and flow of trying to make sure that you're healthy, trying to make sure that you're a good father, good husband, good mother. And I'm still making good money and having, enough to retire on. So I don't want you to mishear me and going, it's all about work and do it at the expense of other people. I don't believe in that.
Yeah. But I just think while you're at work, you gotta work your ass off. You gotta work hard. You gotta
actually work.
Yeah, you gotta actually work and put it in. And anyway, I just love that episode because it's true. And those are the things that people don't see about successful people. I mean, some people see it, like the people that maybe work alongside you every day. They see the amount of work that you put in, or people that have access to your calendar, right? Mm-hmm. They know how much I work every day. But a lot of people might not. They see the results of the hard work and go, man, that must be nice, And I think what your episode shined the light on is that almost every time without fail, what's behind the success was a lot of hard work, and dedication to what it is that you're doing. And the idea of being better every day and putting the effort in, because just working hard isn't always right either, right?
Yeah, and that's not a carte blanche to work stupid either, right?
Right.
Hard exactly. And smart.
Exactly. You got to be smart and then work hard. Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, I mean, wild card, anything you want to throw in here at the end, Ryan? Anything that we didn't touch on that we should?
There's so much going on right now. I mean, on our whole industry. Do you actually think we'll see lower rates we talked about through LLPAs, but through Powell? Do you think Trump and Bessent can put enough pressure on Powell, or is that just another year of 6 and 7% rates?
I think that it's possible we see lower rates. I think that the only path to get there is going to be sustained lower inflation, which we've seen, but it needs to stick through these, through all the disruption that we have right now with the tariffs. And I think we'll see that in a couple months, right? We got a lot of deals that are being worked out. I mean, the China thing is on pause. So,
there's just not enough pain, it seems like, for Powell to use that Trump card for lower rates. It's still not good enough.
Well, look, I think there's a legitimate concern that Powell has, which I would have as well, is, look,
reigniting inflation.
Reigniting inflation is a very strong possibility, and you can't deny that the employment numbers are strong. And look, one of the things about, the closing of the border and less immigration, legal or illegal, I mean, or the deporting, that's going to actually provide more job opportunities for people that are here, right? And so, and then you think about the crackdown that they're doing on some of these social welfare type programs. This is going to force people that are right now not even considered they're not looking for jobs right now. And this isn't a slam. I just, when I listen to what they're trying to accomplish by cutting some of the SNAP program and some of these things that are part of this new tax bill, the big bill, whatever it's called, they are cutting programs that are going to force people who might have been relying heavily on the government to go back to work. All of those things to me point towards not right, wrong, indifferent, whatever. That's not even my point. My point is all of these things point to more people out looking for jobs and lower unemployment numbers, So if employment stays strong and if inflation stays low, those things are both, the Fed's only going to act if unemployment numbers go high. Like if we see issues with employment, right? Like we do not have full employment, but it feels like they're pushing more people into the workforce. So I don't think that that's going to happen, unless something significantly changes. And then I think on the inflation front, it's just a matter of we got to give it some more time. And I actually, as much as I want to see Powell lower rates, and I think he could lower them a little bit now, and be okay. But I understand not using, I've used this analogy on this podcast multiple times. To me, when the Fed has rates built up, it's like having their guns. I think of like a 6-shooter revolver, right? They got bullets in their gun, and right now they got a full magazine ready to go if they need to. Like, why would they waste that ammo right now with so much uncertainty going on? And Powell could give two craps about the housing market. He just does not care about the housing market, and he's not going to make a decision based on that. He's not going to make a decision, in my opinion, based on what Trump or Pulte or anybody else tells him to do. But I think if we see a couple more reads of low inflation, I think he'll lower rates, because he has admitted that we are still very restrictive with our policy. We're restrictive right now, and we have not moved to a neutral, position. And so just getting us to a neutral monetary policy, I think is the right thing to do. That's probably another 50 basis point drop in rates would be my guess. Maybe 75, maybe 100. I don't know. They would still have some bullets in the gun, to use that analogy. But I don't think he's going to do anything until he sees relevant inflation numbers post tariff. And now with the China thing getting pushed 90 days out, to me, it's like that's still going to be an unknown. I almost wish we would have figured something out with China
just
now.
So we know. Yeah, exactly.
Just so we know. Now we got,
because they're not going to make a decision with an uncontrolled, unknown variable. They'll just kick that can down the road again.
Right. So I don't know. And look, to answer your question more directly, I don't think Trump or Pulte or Bessent or anyone else is going to be able to influence what he does. It's going to be the data, and I think the data is not going to be clear until we can sort out this tariff stuff and see how.
Well, the jobs too are still wild to me to watch. Like, again, to tie everything in today, think about all those agencies that are poorly ran with excessive amount of FTEs, full-time employees. Right? CFPB was one of them. Those are hundreds of jobs being eliminated. And if they continue to do that, where are all those people going to go? Now you may go, well, that sucks that they're unemployed. I agree. But also, doesn't it suck that your taxes are so high to pay all of these agencies to pay people to do a job? This is a true story, not to go long, but this weekend I was hanging with my buddy who works for the city, and he just started there, and he's explaining to me that if he shows up 5 minutes late, it's in their contract that he can add an entire 2 days of OT. And I'm like, well, that seems really good for my buddy. He gets overtime paid for 2 days just because he showed up 5 minutes late. And I'm like, eventually I got the courage enough to go, well, how does that make sense? Like, I know that helps you. And it made a ton of sense once he goes, well, if they don't spend the money that they're being allocated, our tax dollars, guys, they will not get it re-upped next year. And so they always try to spend it. I'm like, I want to throw them off my boat right now, but like, holy smokes, like, this is what's happening in all of our states. Our taxes are high because of that thinking. I have to spend this money, so I'm going to arbitrarily pay this guy for an extra 2 days, because if I don't use my full budget, they're going to take it away next year. Now, times that by every agency in the government. F that, guys. Like, we could be paying less taxes, and we can run way more efficiently as a nation if we erase that thinking. And so that's tying everything together. But where are all those people going to go that got let go from all their government jobs? They may not want to go find, sorry, no offense, but like a real job when they've been just paid to stand around and do whatever for the last 10 years. I don't know. That's going to play out in the numbers that you're talking about.
Yeah. Look, I agree that I'm surprised that the employment numbers are what they are. I mean, there's been lots of talk on their accuracy and so on and so forth. But when all we heard about was all these government jobs being added, and we dealt with that for years, and now we see all the government jobs that are being eliminated, but yet we don't see that in the data somehow. Like, yeah,
it's going to show up at some point.
That's a weird phenomenon that's happening. And so that's interesting. This whole thing that you just mentioned about this is what you just said is prolific in every agency of the government. They get X amount of dollars allocated, and if they don't spend it, it goes away. This is, I've known this for years. And to me, this is an incentive problem, right? Like, we need to have incentives in place for people that can bring projects or departments or whatever in under budget. And then they get incentives to do that. That still might lower the overall budget, but somehow provide incentives. There's no incentive right now for anybody to come in below budget. Matter of fact, it's punitive, because if they come in below budget because they had a good year or whatever, then they lose their funding the next year, which truly does happen, Yeah. And so it's a conundrum that, it's things like that make me go, maybe I would run for office one day. Because there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way that we can help fix this.
It just perpetuates bloat, and then a new agency gets added. Again, this is where the left and the right can own this for the last however many years. New agency, and it's ran the same way with the same budget, and they have excessive employees, and they just want to spend their money. And so you wonder why taxes have gone up since you've been a kid. That's why. And it truly needs to be stopped. I don't know why there's not more outcry for it. It's your money being taken from you, from out all your hard work to go accommodate this bad behavior. Why are we not rioting in the streets right now?
I don't think most people realize that that's the way that it works. I just, honestly, but no, I've heard that for years, and it's very true, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
I want more accountability so that all of us can keep more of what our hard-earned money for our families, not have to give it away to somebody that's just going to give it away because they don't want the money taken away from their budget. It's wild to me. And what I meant, like, if he showed up 5 minutes late to clean that example up, he showed up 5 minutes late from his shift. That's what I meant. And so because he showed up 5 minutes late, they are forced to pay him overtime. I don't know why they just wouldn't pay 5 minutes of overtime. That's what you and I would do. But it was like a mandatory extra 2 days. And that was the whole reasoning. Well, we have to use the budget, so we have to pay, we're paying you more. And everybody they're like, oh, and human nature, I get it. Like, oh, I can work and game the system and nobody's going to make me feel bad for that. Well, I'm going to do that every day then, or as much as I can. So you can see why this stuff continues to happen. And then imagine all the people that are a part of it. They don't want to unwind that. Why would they? So you do have some people that want to keep it continued. You got unfiltered hills today, by the way. I feel like I'm coming with a lot of hot takes, Tony, so I hope that's okay.
No, it's great. Look, I think that to me, it all boils down to incentive. There's no incentive for anyone to cut anything. There's no incentive for them to come in below budget. There's no incentive for them to not use all those funds. There's no incentive for the leadership to create extra efficiencies, because they're not rewarded for that. They're all paid on a government scale. They're all paid based on tenure and whatever the case may be. The whole system, the whole government system, it's not like our industry where everything is incentive based, right? All of our
or you're punished severely if you don't have a good viable model, right? Like, you're not in business anymore.
That's right. You're out of business, And I think that's the biggest challenge that I see. I mean, again, I'm not in government, so I can't say too much about it, but it appears to me, just from as a business person, that I look at it and I say, this is a system that has no incentive to move behavior in the right direction. And somehow you would need to introduce some sort of system that rewards good behavior, that, gives people more allocation if they come in under budget, or maybe they, I don't know how that would work, but it's got to be something like that, we all know in our industry that you have to incent the right behavior. And it's amazing how, when you're paid, I think if you could
make, just kind of spitballing here, like if you could make those, because that's a tough thing to unwind, behavior that's 100 years old in government. But whatever agency you run, back to the CFPB, if they were treated like you and I, we got to run our, you have a bigger region. I think you're running pretty much the whole company now. But if I don't run my region well, I don't have a job. And it's usually measured by profitability or lack thereof. So if we implement that one piece of accountability into the people that run these agencies, I think you at least see some behavioral change, because there's no punishment if they don't run it well. Matter of fact, they get more budget because they need more money to accommodate all their inefficiencies. So just some accountability about the people that run these things. I think that would be a nice change. Again, I don't know why a left or a right or a Trump or a Democrat would not agree on. That's like one thing that I think we should all agree on, because we're funding it at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Well, yeah, some accountability to metrics, to goals, to, all that. You're right. I mean, if we don't hit our goals, we don't have jobs. That's kind of the way it works in our world, and there definitely should be more of that. It seems like the decisions to fire people in the government are more political based than they are performance based. And that's a problem, Yep. Yeah. Well, right on. Well, Ryan, we could probably go all day and come up with lots of other things to talk about, but I want to be respectful to the audience who tunes in every single week. Before I wrap up this episode, I got to say that if you're not subscribed to Ryan's show, ReSource TV, resource.tv, you should be. His episodes are nice and short and concise. He does some long master classes, which are awesome when he does them, but mostly short, super relevant, thought-provoking, and highly, they're just high quality content. And I watch them almost every single Monday. I probably miss a few episodes, but I always try to watch Ryan's stuff. And he's been just someone who I think is, just his perspective on our industry is something that if you watch it every week, it's going to make you think differently about what it is that we're doing in the mortgage and real estate space. So make sure you subscribe to Ryan's stuff. Ryan, thank you for coming on and having an unfiltered, unscripted
Yeah, man, this is fun
conversation with me. We might need to make this like a regular thing we do every so often.
Serious, I loved
because it's fun. And for our people watching, look, thank you guys for your time that you invested in watching this. I hope that you enjoyed our meandering conversation about mortgage and real estate. I hope you took something from it. But I hope what you took is what we kicked off from at the beginning, which is, find friends in this industry. It's hard right now. It feels like since COVID, like no one gets out anymore. Reach out to people, build relationships, build friendships, and then lean on those friendships during times when you need them in your life, and it will bring you closer together. I bet you Ryan and I have become closer during difficult times when one of us was going through something and we needed the other person's like help or perspective. That's when relationships can really forge, and then they're there for you whenever you need them. And so hopefully that's a takeaway from this episode. If you enjoy this content, we are trying to grow the channel. We're not at Ryan's level yet. So share this with somebody, let them know about market shares, and of course, subscribe, and we will keep bringing out a new episode every single Friday. Ryan Hills, thank you, my friend. And
appreciate you, man.
thank you. Appreciate you. And all of you, we'll see you next week. Take care.